Welcome back to the Rollout. I'm Jeff Pratt. Joining me as always is Trent Henrich. We got Jay Zim back in the pod for this week, making our Week 13 NFL picks. Just to run through how we did last week. Trent had a bounce back week after a couple of duds. He went 11 for 16. There were 16 games on the docket last week. I went 10 for 16. Jay also went 10 for 16, extending our records to Trent 106 for 177, myself 115 for 177, and Jay's only been here for a couple weeks now, but he is 56 for 86. Much smaller sample size, but definitely impressive there. All right, guys, we got a lot of great games on the docket for tomorrow. We're going to start off with Saints Falcons. These teams met in week, 11? Yeah, 2 weeks ago, and that was Taysom Hill's first game under center. Personally, I was very skeptical about how he was going to do. Obviously, he answered the call there. They got a pretty convincing win, and then they went into Denver against the quarterbackless Broncos. Kendall Hinton, I think he was finished 2 for 9 or 1 for 9 and threw more interceptions than completions in that game. So that was an interesting one. But Taysom Hill will be back under center for the Saints this week as Drew Brees continues to recover. As for the Falcons, they're going to be getting Todd Gurley back. Matt Ryan's been playing at an all right level. Jay, I'll throw this one to you first. Who are you taking this week?
Yeah, I know the Falcons are coming off an impressive win, one that I did not expect. I did not expect them to beat the Raiders, especially in the fashion in which they did, which was shutting down the Raiders' offense, as well as putting points up on the board, of course. But I saw enough from 2 weeks ago in that first Taysom Hill matchup against this Saints team that convinces me to take New Orleans here again because, quite frankly, I just think they're a much better team than this Falcons team, even though the Falcons are seemingly finding sort of a stride right now, especially compared to the abysmal start to the season that they had. But, I don't think this one's really close based on 2 weeks ago. Could it be a better game than it was 2 weeks ago? Sure. But I'm going to roll with Taysom Hill here.
All right. Yeah. The Falcons, they do this a lot. They've done this the last couple of years. They've been not mathematically eliminated, but pretty much eliminated from the playoffs. And then they start playing their best football and just ruin a couple of teams' playoff hopes and totally shake up the entire picture. I'm going to be taking the Saints here as well, pretty much before I toss it to Trent. For what you said, Jay, I saw enough in that Week 11 matchup to know that this Saints team, even with Taysom Hill under center, is miles ahead of where the Falcons are right now. So I'm going to take New Orleans. Trent, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to complete the trifecta here. I'm also going to take the Saints. I think what's really interesting about the Saints team right now and a matchup problem they create for all defenses is they almost have a three-headed monster coming out of the backfield because Taysom Hill runs the ball a lot. Latavius Murray he had like 20 carries last week, and Alvin Kamara only had 13. I mean, we know Alvin Kamara is the better or more versatile running back at least, but they're really involving Latavius a lot right now too. So I think it's really interesting. I think they're really hard to stop because they also have a bunch of weapons in Michael Thomas, Traquan Smith, Jared Cook. I mean, they're a legit offense, and under Taysom Hill, it's just a different offense, which is kind of cool, and it just creates a lot of issues for opposing teams. So I'm going to go with the Saints here as well. I don't think anything's really changed in 2 weeks' time. I mean, Falcons looked great last week, but the Saints defense is a lot better than that Raiders defense, and they'll probably shut the offense down.
All right, all three of us take the Saints there. No surprise. One thing to watch moving forward, Trent, as you touched on, is Alvin Kamara. He's actually dealing with a minor foot issue right now, which is why the Saints are limiting his touches to a certain extent. I think we could see Latavius Murray get more involved down the stretch here as the Saints have pretty much locked up not a first-round bye because obviously they have to compete with other teams for that, but they've locked up a playoff spot. So it's going to be interesting to see how they manage Kamara's workload moving forward. Like I said, all three of us take New Orleans. We're going to move on to a game that I think is going to be pretty competitive. A battle of two surprising AFC Titans, the Cleveland Browns, taking on the Tennessee Titans. A little bit of a wordplay there. Trent, I'll throw this one to you first. Who are you taking?
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting matchup. I personally think the Browns are more pretenders than contenders. Looking at their last 4 or 5 weeks, they've had close wins against teams like the Jaguars, the Texans, and they've put up like 6 points against the Raiders. They lost 16-6, and the Falcons put up 43. This offense just doesn't add up for me. On defensive side of the ball for the Browns, you're getting Myles Garrett back, which is really, really going to help this defense out. I just think that it doesn't really matter who you throw at Derrick Henry. When it's coming down the stretch here like this, Derrick Henry is unstoppable, just like last season. His last like 6 games, he just completely tore through every defense. I think the same thing's going to happen here. Derrick Henry's starting to get in a groove. He's going to get 20, 25 carries, and he's going to get 100 yards, a couple of touchdowns. It's going to be the Derrick Henry show, and guys like AJ Brown are starting to play well too. He actually had 2 total touchdowns last week. I mean, they tore apart a good Colts defense. I like the Titans in this matchup at home against the Browns.
Fair enough. Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, well, for the record, that Colts game last week, I was like, I don't think AJ Brown's getting shut down twice. That's what happened. So, I agree with you on everything you said, Trent. As good as Nick Chubb is, and the Browns' running game is, and as sort of iffy as the Titans' run defense is, I still am taking the Titans in this game because they are just the better offense. Really, they're obviously a top offense in the league because of Derrick Henry, who is, in my opinion, right there at number 4 in the MVP conversation as a running back. So, I trust this Titans team more, and you pretty much covered it, Trent.
Yeah, so I'm going to be the outlier here. I've been an advocate when talking to Trent, at least earlier throughout this week, for taking the Browns in this one. And don't get me wrong, the Titans are a much better football team, and they have a better chance of going farther in the playoffs. But that being said, a guy you mentioned when you were talking, Trent, Myles Garrett, is back this week. He's fresh, and I'm not sure there are many things scarier in the NFL than a fresh Myles Garrett. As Derrick Henry, I mean, obviously no one's going to shut him down, but if there's a team that's going to contain him over the next couple of weeks, it's going to be Cleveland with this top 10 run defense, which they maintained throughout the stretch that Myles Garrett was out. So it's not just him out there. They have a pretty stout defensive line regardless. And then you move to the offensive side of the football for the Browns, and that's where things get very shaky because we all know who they have under center. Baker Mayfield has just proven to be one of the most inconsistent quarterbacks in the NFL. And this year, I think a lot of his lack of production is due to the way Kevin Stefanski runs that offense. Obviously, when you have 2 of the best running backs in the NFL in Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, you're going to lean on those guys. And that's exactly what I'm expecting them to do this week. Between Chubb and Hunt, they're probably going to get 35 to 40 touches between catching balls and on the ground. And I just think that if Cleveland can find a way to score first, stay on the field, and contain Derrick Henry, not stop him. But if you hold Derrick Henry to less than 100 yards rushing, I think Cleveland has a good chance of winning this game. So that's what I'm betting on here. Obviously, a lot of things have to go right for that to happen. But moving on, I took the Browns. Trent and Jay took the Titans there. We have a game between 2 lackluster NFC teams, the Detroit Lions taking on the Chicago Bears, who have lost 5 straight games after starting the season 5-1, and everyone was thinking, including myself, hey, this team, because of their defense, they might be legitimate title contenders. I think we all should have known better considering Nick Foles and Mitch Trubisky are their options at quarterback. Jay, I'll throw this one to you first. Who are you taking?
Yeah, well, that 5-game losing streak is not pretty, but I'm still going to take the Bears here. Listen, the Lions looked pretty bad on Thanksgiving. I usually give passes for Thanksgiving, or not, for Thursday games. So I'll give them a little bit of one here too. But, the reality is they're really bad on both sides of the ball. And if they turn the ball over like they did last week, the Bears are going to take advantage with short field. Dave Montgomery is back. He came back last week against the Packers. He looked really good. I expect them to run the ball again here. And, hopefully Mitch Trubisky, who can move the ball down the field at times against bad defenses. Hopefully he does the same here because the defense needs to, catch some breaks here and catch their breath and not go 3-and-out and not watch 3-and-outs transpire all over. So, Mr. Trubisky looked pretty bad last week. I still think at this point you have to roll with him over Nick Foles after Nick Foles' 4-game stretch that he went on. So, I'm going to take the Bears here, but it has more to do with the Lions being not a very good team. And obviously it's the first game without their coach. Then it has to do with the Bears being a good team.
Yeah, Trent, before I toss to you, I'll hop in and give my prediction real quick. It's going to be the Bears for me as well. I think that this is one they have to win if they are going to jump back into playoff contention and, not only have to win, but they need to win convincingly here because this Lions defense is not good whatsoever. I mean, there's a reason Matt Patricia was fired. They've been putrid defending the run and the pass recently. I mean, and then looking on the offensive side of the ball, Matt Stafford hasn't really been himself this year. A lot of that is due to the fact that Kenny Golladay hasn't been on the field that much. And we all love Kenny Golladay here. He's one of the more underrated receivers in the NFL, I think, in all of our opinions. He led the NFL in touchdowns last year, but man, he's dealing with a hip injury right now. He's dealing with some other injuries earlier this season that have just kept him from coming on the field, and it's hurting this Detroit squad. And another thing that's hurting them is they might not have DeAndre Swift back again tomorrow because he got out of concussion protocol, but now he's dealing with an illness. And Adrian Peterson came out and said himself that Swift hasn't really gone back to being himself yet, which is worrisome as a Lions fan and as a DeAndre Swift fantasy owner. I just think that if Swift doesn't go, even if he does go, I don't think that the Lions will be able to pull this out because the Bears' run defense is so good. But if he goes, it's going to be closer. I'm still taking Chicago. Trent, I'm going to hand it to you now.
Yeah, you're right. The Bears have lost 5 straight, and we love that. We really do. After getting it wrong for the first 5 weeks, I've gotten it right for the Bears the last 5 weeks or so. So it felt good to finally get on track with the Bears. Having said that, the Lions look really bad, like awful. They lost to the Panthers' backup quarterback and didn't score a single point. That's not pretty. I just think this offense, I mean, especially if they don't have Swift, but I like you talked about with Golladay, not having him being a main target for Matt Stafford really, really hurts this offense. And their defense is not that good. I'm going to roll with the Bears because even if Swift plays, the Bears' run defense is pretty solid. And I think the Lions would have to lean on Swift in this game. So I'm going to go with the Bears, even though I don't like them. And I still think they're pretenders and they're not that good. Their defense could probably just win them this game because the Lions don't score many points. Their defense could score a touchdown. That's all they need. So I'm going to go with the Bears and Allen Robinson, actually. Allen Robinson should get a lot of catches this week.
Absolutely. That's one thing that Mr. Trubisky loves to do is force feed Allen Robinson. He had the 3rd most targets in the NFL behind Michael Thomas and Julio Jones last year. So we saw that he went to him a lot in the Packers game as well. So that's definitely something to look forward to if you're an A-Rob owner in fantasy leagues. All right. We all take the Bears there. Moving on, we have the Cincinnati Bengals led by Brandon Allen, not Ryan Finley, Brandon Allen, taking on the Miami Dolphins, who may be without Tua Tagovailoa this week. His status is still unsure. I think we'll probably know about an hour or two before game time. But honestly, they might be better just rolling Ryan Fitzpatrick out there against this Bengals defense, especially because they might be without almost all of their running backs. Myles Gaskin is currently set to come off IR, or at least he's advancing towards coming off IR and playing tomorrow. That being said, if he doesn't, Matt Breed is not going to play. Who else is it? Salvin Ahmed isn't going to play. They'd be left with Patrick Laird at running back, which is definitely not ideal. Trent, I'll throw this one to you first. Who are you taking?
It's Fitzmagic. It's I hope Tua doesn't play because I like Fitzmagic honestly more in this offense this season. He's the real deal in my opinion. At least, I mean, he's been moved around a lot, but he's finally having a good season. Even though he got benched, he came right back out when Tua got hurt, and he looked great. So I have no doubt with Fitzmagic in this offense, especially against this Bengals defense, which isn't great. Bengals offense is, I mean, they're without Joe Burrow, so that's really going to hurt them. And I do think Myles Gaskin's going to be back this week. I think they have 3 running backs that are doubtful or already out for this game. That's not a good look for them. Myles Gaskin has been resting for, I think, 4 or 5 weeks now, which is more than the timetable needed for his foot injury. I expect him to actually play. I don't know if it'll be the same, but this Dolphins offense and this Dolphins defense will, I think, beat up on the Bengals pretty good.
Fair enough. Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with the Dolphins too. I mean, Joe Burrowless Bengals is always going to be a bad sign, and that's probably what I'll say every time that they played this year. Without looking at the schedule now, maybe who knows? Maybe there'll be one game where I change my mind, but it's highly unlikely. I'm gonna roll with the Dolphins here.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Dolphins here too. I just think that top to bottom, they're a much better football team than Cincinnati. And without Joe Burrow, they have no one to keep them in this game, especially since Joe Mixon is still on IR, although he is designated to come off next week. And it sounds like he might, which would definitely be a little surprising considering the Bengals have no reason to play him since their season's lost. But we'll see how that plays out. One thing I'd like to point out before moving on, I've been thinking about this, and we're all Patriots fans. If Cam Newton's not the quarterback of the New England Patriots next year, I think Ryan Fitzpatrick just might be. Moving on. I know, Trent, you might have something to say about that. I think you would like that.
I want to give a hot take. I think Fitzmagic would be a good fit, but it's not. I will announce now that the New England Patriots will be trading for Gardner Minshew next season. You heard it here first. The Jaguars are looking pretty bad, and they're probably going to draft a quarterback. And I think they've given up on Minshew, so we'll probably trade second-round pick for him, and we'll go undefeated next season. That's all.
If Cam Newton is a transitional quarterback, and we're moving on next year, I don't want another transitional quarterback.
Yeah, I agree. I think that I think Cam will be here next year. I think we're going to draft a guy, and he'll probably be there for another year to mentor him. But moving on, speaking of the Jags, they're the next team we're talking about. They are taking on the Minnesota Vikings. And Trent, your guy Gardner Minshew, he's healthy. But Doug Marrone is rolling with Mike Glennon instead. He is healthy. He's been healthy. Doug Marrone came out and said that in the press conference. They are just rolling with Mike Glennon. I don't know if that just means they have a wish to lose this game. And meanwhile, the Vikings are coming off one of the more bizarre victories of the season against the Panthers, where they somehow, Carolina just fumbled away that game through a variety of really weird mistakes that led down to it. Jay, I'll start here with you first. Who are you taking in this matchup?
Yeah, I know this isn't about the Panthers, but in no instance can you recover a muffed punt in your own 10 with 2 minutes left when you have the lead, or in their own 10, and then go on to lose the game. Awful. That being said, the Vikings are a much better team than the Jaguars and have been showing great promise. Yesterday, they pulled off a win in which all three of us didn't think they would win, against the Panthers, and they didn't have Adam Thielen. So now I think he comes back this week. Is that correct? So there's no reason not to take the Vikings over the Jaguars. And like you said, the Jaguars are in complete take mode. They're game out from the number 1 seed. We'll see if they get it. Probably not. But, no reason not to take the Vikings here.
Trent, what do you think?
Well, if it's not going to be Gardner Minshew, I'll take Mike Glennon. I'm going to go with the Jaguars with a huge upset here. Here's the thing. I think the Jaguars keep it close no matter what. They lost by 2 to the Browns last week. Mike Glennon didn't look bad. The Vikings' run defense is not great. James Robinson should have a pretty dang good game this week. And the Jaguars had kept it close against good teams. They lost the Packers by 4. And I know they're 1-10. I just don't think they're a 1-10 team. I think what really hurt the Jaguars this season is they let most of their defense go or traded them. And that's what really hurt them this season because their offense is not that bad. Either way, the Vikings are -10, so I'm going to take the Jaguars +10 because they keep most games close. And maybe this is the time they actually win. I wish it was Minshew starting at quarterback. I also think DJ Chark is back this week. He's been out for a few weeks as well. So I think there actually are some positive with this Jaguars matchup against the Vikings. And the Vikings have struggled the last couple of weeks. I mean, they lost to Dallas. They barely beat the Panthers, and they probably didn't deserve to win that Panthers game. I mean, I know Adam Thielen's back, but why not give them the Jaguars? My upset for this week.
All right, I'm going to take the Vikings here, but I think this game's going to be close, and you'll be able to tell that just looking at the box score. If James Robinson gets 25 plus carries, that means this game's close, pretty much, in my opinion, because that means that they're going to keep going to him on the ground, and that obviously the Vikings weren't able to pull away. But if there's one thing we know about this Vikings team, besides the fact that Dalvin Cook has been a top 2 running back in the league this year, it's that they have the capability to hit on big plays with Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. These guys have been pretty dynamic this year, despite the fact that Kirk Cousins is the one throwing them the ball. So I'm going to take the Vikings in this one. I just think that their offense is a little bit more dynamic than the Jags, and their defense is a lot better than the Jags, despite, having a pretty abhorrent run defense. So moving on, we have the Indianapolis Colts coming off an embarrassing loss to the Tennessee Titans, where that game was just flipped on the earlier matchup, pretty much between those two teams. So I guess, that they had that one coming, taking on the somehow red-hot Houston Texans, who will unfortunately be without Will Fuller for the rest of the year. I don't care if you believe his story that he accidentally took these PEDs from the doctor and that he was unknowing whether he was doing that or not. There's definitely something suspicious going on in Houston right there. They need to get rid of their connection with whoever that doctor was. Jay, I know you mentioned whoever their strength and conditioning coach was. You'll be able to talk about that after I throw it to Trent. But anyway, Trent, I'll throw this one to you first. Who you taking, the Colts or the Texans?
I definitely will let Jay talk about Brian Cushing. I think that's who you guys are talking about. Dude's freaking huge, but I'll let Jay talk about it. This is an interesting game. I wish Will Fuller was playing this week because I would take the Texans. I think Watson is playing really good football right now, and the Texans defense isn't great, which isn't helping him, and now he doesn't have Will Fuller either. I think Brandon Cooks is going to have a really good game. It's going to be time for him to feast and really have a strong connection with Deshaun Watson. I don't know if David Johnson's back this week. He is back this week, yeah, which will help. Colts have a pretty good run defense. I just think the Colts need to bounce back win after last week. It was kind of an embarrassing loss to the Titans. They got beat up pretty good. I'm going to go with the Colts at the Texans. I do think this will be a close game, and I think it would be even closer if Will Fuller didn't take PEDs.
Yeah, Jay, before I throw this to you, I'm going to take the Colts here too. I just think that their offense, the way they run it, that continuous high-tempo offense where they just grind away at defense, it's going to kill the Texans. And Deshaun Watson, he's going to have to pull off some incredible heroics to win this game. We know that he's capable of doing so, but without his big hitter guy and Will Fuller, I'm just not sure he's going to be able to get it done this week. But I'm rolling Indy. Jay, tell us about Brian Cushing and why you're taking the Colts this game.
Well, I don't have any inside connection, so I don't want to get up here and be like, "Oh, Brian Cushing, man, that man did it."
Is joining us, yeah.
Yeah, so I don't actually know, but it is kind of funny that Brian Cushing had some of the PED things in his own tenure with the Texans, and now two of the members of his team as when he's the strength and conditioning coach. But that aside, I'm taking the Colts. I like bounce back weeks for teams. I think this is one for them. And like you said, the Texans defense is really just going to struggle here. And I think for the Colts on defense, they'll get to zero in on people like Brandon Cooks. On Brandon Cooks, people like Brandon Cooks. On Brandon Cooks, because of Deshaun Watson missing some wide receivers. And I think it'll be easier for them to contain Deshaun Watson. And, Deshaun hasn't thrown an interception like 200-something pass attempts. Statistically, it's only a matter of time. So, I don't think he's going to play another turnover-free game against a really good defense here. So I'm going to take the Colts.
All right, all three of us take the Colts, unsurprisingly there. Wait, Trent, you took the Colts, right? Yeah, you did. Okay, moving on, we have the Las Vegas Raiders taking on the New York Jets. This Raiders team, after coming out and really competing against the Chiefs, they were absolutely atrocious last week against the Falcons. As I mentioned, the Falcons like to play their best football after they've been almost mathematically eliminated from the playoffs. But that being said, they're going to be without Josh Jacobs again this week. We all know Devontae Booker is capable of coming in and being a productive back. He's been doing that as their change of pace guy over the last couple of weeks. But that being said, I think this one's going to be closer than many would expect. I'm still taking the Raiders here personally, but I wouldn't be shocked if this is a 3-point game. Jay, I'll throw it to you first. Who are you taking?
Don't make the same mistake, Jeff. Don't take the Jets. They want Trevor Lawrence. Yeah, the Raiders are a better team than they showed last week. To be fair, I was box score watching that game last week, so I don't really, I don't have the in-depth what happened to them.
I mean, Derek Carr threw a pick and then fumbled 3 times.
Right, and I saw that, and that's all you need to know sometimes. I think one of them was a pick 6, correct? Right, and against a defense that really hadn't given anyone any type of problems up until that game, that's not looking good for Gruden and Carr and that Raiders offense and the confidence of that team. I understand the logic. It is more than likely that the Jets do win a game unless they're actually really, really trying to go 0-16 because, frankly, teams rarely go 0-16. But at the same time, I'm going to take the Raiders in the bounce-back week against the worst team in football.
Fair enough. Trent, what about you?
I went back and forth a little bit on this one. I think the Raiders are a team that play up to better teams, but play down to worse teams. I think it's an interesting case because the Raiders look great every time they play teams like the Chiefs. But when they're playing, the Falcons, they played some poor teams and they haven't had great performances. I do think this game could be close. I still wish Joe Flacco was at quarterback and not Darnold. I still think Flacco's got something left in him. I'm going to go with the Raiders. Seems like the safer pick. I think it's a kind of a same scenario as the Browns-Jags last week. The Browns were just the safer pick, and they squeaked it out. I think it's the same thing here. The Raiders are the safest pick, and they should squeak out a win against the Jets. I think it just could be a weirdly low-scoring, interesting game, though.
All right, all of us take the Raiders, but acknowledge it could be a closer game than most expect. Moving on, we have the New York Giants, divisional leaders, New York Giants. I might add playoff-bound New York Giants at this point if the season were to end today, taking on the Seattle Seahawks. And Trent, I'm going to throw this one to you first. What do you think about it?
I think this is an interesting matchup because Russell Wilson has been throwing a lot of interceptions lately, and the cornerbacks and safeties for this Giants team are actually surprisingly good. I think Russell Wilson may struggle a little bit early on, may throw a pick. I think that having Chris Carson back may really help the Seahawks offense. Also, Seahawks are at home. I'm not sure what the weather is going to be like in Seattle, but I think it actually could be a factor if it's a rainy, wet, usual Washington day. I'm going to go with the Seahawks. I think the Giants can make it interesting. I think I was talking to Jeff about this. I think a team like the Giants or the Redskins would give the Seahawks interesting trouble in like a first-round game if they had to in the playoffs, just because the Giants and Redskins, they don't have good records, but they have decent defenses. And it wouldn't take a lot for the Seahawks defense to get exposed. It's Russell Wilson, he carries this team, and he has to be on his A game every week. Seahawks win this game, but it may be a decent game to watch.
Jay, what do you think?
Well, this is a game, if Daniel Jones was playing, I would have actually taken the Giants just to test how far I can go with these Seahawks correct picks. But since he's not playing, I'm going to roll with Seattle here. I agree. I agree with your assessment of the secondary in New York. But frankly, I think the Seahawks defense has been looking better in the last 3 weeks, and I think they shouldn't really have a problem against a team with a backup quarterback, a backup running back. So, I hope Russ sort of makes his another statement down the stretch here in December and the first week of January for that MVP case. I hope he He really tries to get it back, and I want to see that happen. So, a strong performance against a pretty good defense here would certainly help him, and I'm certainly counting on it because I'm picking the Seahawks this week.
Yeah, to round it out, I'm going to take Seattle here, but I will acknowledge it's going to be a closer game, like you were saying, Trent and Jay, like you were saying. But I just don't think Colt McCoy, any team led by him, despite him having one of the coolest names in NFL history, I'm not sure that he's going to get it done. Man, it's such a shame that he wasn't good. I could just see him up there with the NFL best. Colt McCoy, one of the best.
Real McCoy, Washington, D.C. legend.
Oh, my God. All right. But one thing I will address, though, Jay, you said backup quarterback and backup running back. Wayne Gallman, he has been a backup running back, but he has absolutely not been playing like it as of late. He's been by far the most consistent and best player on that Giants team. And it's going to be a real shame if Devontae Freeman comes on off IR next week and just takes unnecessary touches away from him, because I just think that that is something that should absolutely not happen for the Giants moving forward. All right. We all take Seattle there. Moving on, we have a game that I think is going to be pretty interesting and will definitely have a lot of playoff implications over the next couple of weeks. It is the Los Angeles Rams taking on the Arizona Cardinals, who the New England Patriots, as I predicted, and I'm not sure if either one of you guys predicted the Patriots, surprised them, beat them with an upset, made Kyler Murray look like one of the worst quarterbacks in football. Last week, the defense really showed up for New England, but we'll get to them next matchup. This one is about the Cardinals. Jay, I'll throw to you first. Who are you taking?
Yeah, this is probably, I'm looking at the schedule, this is probably the game of the week, I guess, in my opinion. This has massive playoff implications. The Cardinals sitting at the 7 seed right now, and the Rams sitting at the 5 seed, I believe. So, the winner of this game, and them being in the same division, they have 2 matchups, including this one coming up. So that will really determine a lot in the NFC West and also in the NFC. It's hard to take the Cardinals coming off the game against New England. I'm not necessarily surprised that they did what they did to the Cardinals offense. Because at the end of the day, Kyler Murray is a second-year quarterback. But the reality is this Rams defense is way better than that. Them being a top 2 defense in the NFL, I guess, in my opinion, although they struggled against the 49ers last week. I'd have to think about it some more, but for now, let's just say top 3. But, I'm going to go with the Rams here, but I really want the Cardinals to win. This one is something I'm really not sure of because both teams really didn't look good last week. But I'm going to go ahead and say that I'm more convinced in the Rams team than the Cardinals team as of right now. Especially because the Rams are better on both sides of the ball more consistently. Maybe you can debate that on the offensive side of things, but at least on defense wins championships sometimes. So,
yeah, fair enough. I think it's safe to say that this is the Rams team that everyone was expecting to show up last year, and they obviously took a year off from contending, and they jumped right back into it. Jared Goff, there are weeks when he shows up, and there are weeks when he looks like a subpar quarterback, and I think that's what decides games for this Rams team, because the defense is always going to show up. The running backs, it's not always clear who's going to have a good game, but one of Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, Cam Akers usually shows up. And then obviously the wide receivers are there. It's all just falls on whether Jared Goff is playing up to his best level. I think he does in this game. I'm taking the Rams, Jay, pretty much for the reasons you said as well. Trent, what about you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Rams as well. I think a big factor this week is DeAndre Hopkins is going to have some trouble with Jalen Ramsey, in my opinion. I think that matchup is going to be pretty interesting to watch. And another thing is Kyler Murray hasn't looked the same to me since his injury. He's been more weary of running the ball, which was early on in the season. He was getting like 60, 70, 80 yards a game on the ground. That's not the case as of right now. He may be back to full health and maybe running the ball like crazy this week. I'm not sure. I just like the offense and defense of this Rams team. They're really good on both sides of the ball. And when Jared Goff's throwing accurate, I mean, we've seen both Kupp and Woods get 10 catches in the same game this season. We could see that here. this Cardinals defense definitely can get exposed a little bit. So I personally I like this Rams team. I like this matchup for them. It's a big game for both teams, though. The winner gets a huge advantage. Moving on, gonna go with the Rams.
All right, fair enough. We all take the Rams there. Moving on, we have New England Patriots, as I just mentioned, taking on the Los Angeles Chargers. I think this one, it has shootout potential in my mind, just because any game virtually with the Chargers has shootout potential. Justin Herbert, we know he's going to show up and try to outgun the opposing quarterback, and their defense has been solid, but injury prone, a little shaky. And then as for the Patriots, man, we have no idea who shows up this week under center. Is it going to be the Cam Newton who's confident, or is it going to be the Cam Newton of last week who doesn't throw for over 75 yards or 80? I think he had 84 total passing yards, something like that. It was really bad. They somehow managed to squeak out a win against the Cardinals, but it was definitely concerning. Trent, I'll throw this one to you first. Who are you taking?
This is a really hard pick for me because going into honestly 35 minutes ago before we started, I was thinking the Pats. They're playing pretty good football right now. They're beating some good teams, and they're not out of the playoffs yet. I mean, if they keep getting wins, we could see a Patriots appearance. Having said that, I'm gonna do the same philosophy as that last week, and I'm gonna pick their opponent. And if the Patriots win, I win. And if I get the pick right, I still feel like a winner. So I'm going to go with the Chargers. And I think something that is really important with this Chargers team that we haven't seen most of the season coming into this week is we should see a fully healthy Austin Eckler. He played really well last week, and he didn't get that many touches just because it was his first week back. I think this could be the Austin Eckler show this week, and having that threat of Eckler makes the defense have to hone in on the run game a little more for the Chargers, may give Herbert more time to throw balls to Keenan Allen, Mike Williams. I think it's going to be a really tough week for the Pats. I hope they win. I'm going to pick the Chargers, and if the Pats win, I'm still a happy guy. So
Fair enough. Jay, who are you taking?
I'm taking New England this week. Although I'm worried that, this is, I told you this, Jeff, I'm worried that this is like, taking them over the Texans after we beat the Ravens, we beat the Cardinals, I'm taking them over the Chargers. You really just don't know what team shows up here, but I have to reward them with what I see. And I saw a great win, great defensive win. So, I have to trust in that again here this week, especially because of how much of a must-win this is. I know every game now for us is a must-win. But, against a 3-8 team, this is one that you really need because it would look really bad to drop this one. Even though I've said that the Chargers are a better team than the record shows, which I think we all agree on to an extent, even though you are what your record is. So, yeah, I'm going to roll with New England here. I want to see some improvement in our offense, obviously, as everyone does. And I really want to see if we can get Cam throwing downfield more. I know that's not necessarily the strongest part of our offense, but against a team like the Chargers who struggle in the secondary and with deep passes and big plays, I want to keep them honest, and I don't want them zeroing in on the run game because I think that's something that they'll have an easier time stopping than a passing attack. Although, of course, I know that our run game is the strongest part of our team on that side of the ball. And maybe actually the strongest part of our team this year is our run game. So, I'm going to take us, but yeah, I'm nervous because we're 5-6 and we've looked very inconsistent. We have to show up against the bad teams too. So let's do that.
If I had to answer who the more talented football team out of these two is, I think I could say the Chargers pretty confidently. That being said, I picked the Patriots last week because I said never doubt Bill Belichick in a situation where he needs to win, and he needs to win again this week if they want to keep their playoff hopes alive. This one, I know it won't mathematically eliminate them, but if you drop to 5-7, your season's over in the AFC this year. So they need this one. They need to virtually win out. They can afford to drop one more game moving forward if they want a chance to make the playoffs. Obviously, winning out and finishing at 10-6 would be much better. I think they definitely get in if they finish the season at 10-6, 9-7. I'm not so sure because the AFC is full of pretty decent teams this year. So, taking into account everything that both of you guys have said, I think it's going to be a close game. I think it comes down to whoever can stay on the field longer as an offense. Virtually. That's what I've been saying a lot this week. The team that stays on the field longer really controls the pace of this game is going to win, and it all comes down to which Cam Newton shows up. All that being said, I'm taking New England. All right, moving on, we have the Green Bay Packers taking on the Philadelphia Eagles, who have activated Jordan Howard off of their practice squad. Just another frustrating move for Miles Sanders owners. From a fantasy perspective, I mean, they've already been capping his workload for some unknown reason, and now they bring in a goal line specialist in Jordan Howard. That really does not make Miles Sanders owners happy, and probably Philadelphia Eagles fans, because they want to see their best player touch the ball, and that is Miles Sanders right now. So all that being said, Jay, I'll throw this one to you first. Who are you taking?
Yeah, I'm rolling with the Packers here. They're a better football team. I know the Eagles kept that game close last weekend, or Monday, I guess it was. But, the Packers are just the way better football team. And I trust Aaron Rodgers to light up this Eagles defense, especially if the offensive line can keep him protected, because the Eagles, the best part of that team is that D-line. So, if the Packers do their thing up front and in the trenches, then it really should not be a close game. So that's, I think, the gist of it. Long term, I don't think the Eagles really have a chance even in their own division. But if you're an Eagles fan, you kind of want to see Carson Wentz do something. It's like the meme of the the guy like poking the stick at the team, and he's like, do something. So that's kind of where the Eagles fans are right now, because who knows what's going to happen next year in terms of the quarterback situation. I'm not saying it's all Carson Wentz's fault, because it's not. But the reality is, when you're 3-7-1 and out of a division race, at least in my opinion, in where the leading team is 4-7, that really doesn't bode well for fans of an organization. So a win here for them would be massive, and it would change my mind. But I just have a lot more faith in Aaron Rodgers, obviously, than this Eagles team.
Yeah, I don't think I need to go into as much analysis here. The Packers are much better on offense, and on defense, the gap isn't nearly as far. I think that the Eagles are probably better defensively than the Packers, and that could come back to bite Green Bay in the butt in the playoffs. But, in this game, Aaron Rodgers is going to out-duel Carson Wentz, and that's all it's going to take. Trent, I'll throw it to you.
Short and sweet. Packers win. We're on to Cincinnati.
On to Cincinnati. All right, moving into the final four matchups of the week, we have the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Denver Broncos, who will be getting Drew Lock back. I guess I'll start this one off really quick by saying it doesn't matter, because the Chiefs are the best football team in the world right now. Not even America, although I guess the best football team in America is the best football team in the world. I don't know why I said the world there, but yeah, Kansas City, they're the best team in the NFL right now. No one's beating Patrick Mahomes, especially not Drew Lock and the Denver Broncos. Trent, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I would argue that maybe Liverpool or Tottenham are really good football teams in the world. They probably give the Chiefs a run for their money. But, yeah, Chiefs are going to win this game. Doesn't matter if the Broncos decide to roll out Royce Freeman at quarterback that they talked about, Drew Lock. They bring in Brett Favre. It don't matter. I mean, Chiefs by a million.
Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going with the Calgary Stampeders in this game. No, I'm taking the Chiefs. They're the best football team in the world, like you said. And the Broncos aren't in playoff contention, so it's really not close. Yeah, I think the Chiefs will probably come out of the AFC. I hope I'm wrong because I would love to see a team like the Titans or the Steelers beat them, or even the Bills, because that would just be funny. But at the end of the day, I have the most faith in this team than any other team. And if they were to drop a game against the Broncos, that would not be great. Although it wouldn't really change my mind either, but it wouldn't be great.
Yeah. Moving on, we have the Washington football team taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Trent, you didn't say much about the Chiefs because obviously that game is almost spoken for. So I'm going to throw this one to you first again. Who are you taking in this matchup?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the Steelers here. Washington's actually a decent team. I don't think they get enough credit. Antonio Gibson's had a really good season. The Washington defense is pretty solid, but the Steelers team is undefeated for a reason. They're great on both sides of the ball. I think we were talking earlier, Jeff. Bud Dupree, he's out for the season. He's out, yeah, and that's really gonna hurt them. Big injury last week, but the Steelers team is still dominant on both sides of the ball. Give me the Steelers at home.
Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, so this game I think is going to be closer than people think, but I think some people also agree that it's going to be close because this football team, the football team, looked great last week, and their defense is definitely a strong point. In the whole National Football League, really, what they do against opponent wide receivers is very impressive for a team that is 4-7. So I would not be shocked if they beat the Steelers here. And I think people need to, prepare for that possibility. Although I'm going to say what I have said and will continue to say, which is that when I take the Steelers, I'm going to be right more times than I'm wrong. They're 11-0 now. I know they've played some bad teams. I know they've caught some breaks playing the Lamar Jackson-less Ravens. I know that they're probably not going to finish the season 16-0, but I think it's more likely that they drop games against the Bills and one other team I forget, maybe later down the road or not. But I don't want to take the risk and take the football team here. But you know what? If there's a team that can upset them that people wouldn't predict out of the remaining schedule for the Steelers, I think this could easily be the team.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that Washington, they might pose some matchup problems for the Steelers. All that being said, I think Pittsburgh is the better team, second best team in the NFL right now. Obviously, losing Bud Dupree, we're going to see. We're going to have to wait and see how that affects them. As of right now, it would be stupid not to take the Steelers. All right, moving on, we have the final two matchups of this week. The Buffalo Bills taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Jay, not Trey, Jay. I'll throw this one to you first. Who are you taking? Couldn't decide who to throw to first.
Yeah, this is another one I struggled with. I'm going to take the Bills, though, because quite frankly, they're looking great at 8-3 right now. And I don't think the 49ers pull off two big wins against two very good football teams in a row. I think Josh Allen has definitely fallen off the path that he was on to begin the season. But I think that I still have a lot of faith in him and that Bills team that has impressed a lot of people. Do I think that, down the stretch, I believe in them to reach the AFC Championship game? Probably not. I just don't think it's in their DNA right now. But at the end of the day, I have a lot of faith in this football team, and I think they're better right now and have more momentum right now than the 49ers.
Fair enough. Trent, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm going to agree with Trey here. I'm going to go with the Buffalo Bills. I think it's to me, it's weird that the Niners are favored in this game, and the Niners have looked good the last couple of weeks. They are at home. I just think this Bills team is it's a legit team. They're first in the AFC East for a reason. They've gotten some quality wins. Josh Allen does look really good. I think what's interesting this season compared to honestly the last like 5 to 10 is the Bills were always known for their defense. They were one of the hardest teams to play against because their defense was also so stout. But the season, their defense hasn't been the same as it used to be. It's more about their offense this year, and Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs. He's been great, and I think that this offense can get through a banged up Niners defense and pull out a quality victory. I mean, I think for the Niners, that may give them a lot of motivation to try and win this game is they're still in the playoff hunt. They're not out of it in the NFC. They're in a really tough division, and they have a chance to, like I said, like it's like the Pats. I think they're 5-6. This is a big game for them. They may get the motivation to win. I'm still going to roll with the Bills, but it should be pretty close.
Yeah, I'm going to take Buffalo in this one too, although I would love to see the 49ers show up and pull off the upset. As a Patriots fan, it would be big. But all that being said, Buffalo, they're the better team. I think Josh Allen, much better quarterback than Nick Mullins, and that's kind of all that needs to be said for this one. These defenses are pretty comparable. The 49ers have bounced back from their injuries. Richard Sherman came back last week and had a pick. He was good. I know obviously he's not the only factor in that defense. They're still without Nick Bosa and Solomon Thomas. So this defense is not nearly what they were last year when they made the Super Bowl. As for Buffalo, their defense isn't exactly where they were at last year as well. They have pretty much the same players, but there's something about this core that has not been as stout as they were last season. All that being said, I'm still going to roll with Josh Allen and the Bills this week. All right, moving on to the final matchup, we have the Dallas Cowboys taking on the Baltimore Ravens, who will be getting Lamar Jackson back. Trent, I'll throw this one to you first. Who are you taking?
This is an interesting one. I don't have a read on the Ravens at this point in time. They lost to the Patriots. They've also had some big wins. And then basically their practice squad and third string quarterback lose by 5 to the undefeated Steelers. And they were stopped on a goal line drive. It's a weird team. I'm solely taking the Ravens because they're home and maybe they'll feel comfortable there, especially a lot of guys who, coming off COVID, might just feel comfortable being home and not having to travel to Dallas. I think if they had to travel to Dallas, I'd probably change my pick here because the Red Rifle or Red Rocket, Andy Dalton, he's legit. This Cowboys offense has kind of been clicking. Honestly, they haven't been doing that bad, but their defenses still has some holes in it. Gonna go with the Ravens. Hopefully Lamar Jackson's back to his old self and puts up a good stat line this week.
Fair enough. Jay, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm taking the Ravens after a weird week, and I guess you could call it a bounce back week, although that loss was not a bad loss for them, especially without Lamar Jackson. It's the Cowboys at the end of the day. It's that defense at the end of the day. And so I'm going to take the Ravens here. I don't think it'll be close if Lamar has a good game.
So I should take the Ravens here, but I'm feeling like an upset. So I'm going to roll with the Dallas Cowboys. A large reason of this is we've seen consistently when players come back from having COVID, they're not exactly the same for at least a week, sometimes 2 weeks. In the case for the Patriots, Cam Newton didn't really get back to the level he was playing at for 2 or 3 games after he went out with COVID. And Lamar, this offense, besides Lamar Jackson, is not as talented as the Cowboys in terms of who they have out there. I know that Dallas's offensive line has been somewhat decimated, and their defense, they have all the players they need to put together a great defensive unit. Their just defensive coordinator hasn't been able to do it so far this year. All that being said, I think that the Cowboys are going to go up early here, and Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have proven that they cannot win games consistently coming from behind. And that's all it takes. If this Ravens defense, maybe if they have even a subpar week against Ezekiel Elliott and this Cowboys offense can find a way to stay on the field, go up early, hold that lead, I think that they can come in here and pull off this upset. All right. That's going to wrap up this episode of the Rollout, making our Week 13 picks. Jay, as always, great having you on. Trent made a couple of less bold picks in this one. Maybe that will continue to make your win streak grow. All right. all that being said, everyone stay safe. Enjoy some football tomorrow and Monday and Tuesday. We're in a COVID world now, so I'm sure most of you guys are working from home or at school from home. Whatever is the case, stay safe. Enjoy the games. Have a good one.
Thanks, Jeff.